Good evening, America, and welcome to this Just the News, Real America's Voice special report, avoiding another pandemonium, brought to you by our friends at the Wellness Company. I'm John Solomon, editor-in-chief of Just the News, and I'll be your host over the next hour for an exclusive conversation with Dr. Peter McCullough, one of the greatest medical experts in our country, one of the medical profession's best innovators, and one of the biggest disruptors in the public health space right now. And that's a space that needs to be disrupted, trust me. As you know from our work here on the show, Dr. McCullough had so many things right about COVID-19 when Dr. Anthony Fauci and his team inside the government mishandled so much of the COVID-19 response. But over the last few weeks, we've been reminded repeatedly that another pandemic, or at least the fears of one, are on the horizon. This one, of course, involves bird flu, which has broken out at several chicken and cattle dairy farms across America. Hasn't been that serious, but its spread among livestock has led to increasingly stronger warnings that the virus, which scientists have long feared, might one day infect humans in a serious way. We have a lot to cover to find out if that's really true. There are a few dairy workers who have gotten the disease, but mostly they've not suffered any serious symptoms, and we're thankful for that. Over the next hour, we're going to do a deep dive into what's really going on with the bird flu, what the history that lies ahead of us might look like, and how much of our public health establishment still needs to change its ways. Has it really adapted the playbook, and has it changed its mindset? Has it really learned from the fumbles of the COVID-19 pandemic? We're going to really dive into that. The warning signs are many in the last 24 hours alone that the public health establishment is gearing up. The Colorado governor, Jared Polis, declared an emergency in his state over the outbreak. In Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is requiring farmers to start reporting humans who come in and out of farming areas where the bird flu has broken out among animals. And there's some resistance to her order, something we've been warning about, distrust of the public health establishment. Finally, the Biden administration has made a large 9-figure financial commitment to one of the drug makers to start developing an mRNA vaccine for bird flu. They're doing this even though we don't have all the data, we don't have all the assessments about the safety and efficacy of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine. Those are all things that should concern us and that should be at the top of our conversations. So, big and worrying signs, yep, but we're lucky tonight to be walked through all of those by our good friend, Dr. Peter McCullough. He has done more thinking and reinventing and innovating in this public health space than anyone I know. Doctor, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's walk through what we know about the pandemic, the bird flu, which isn't a pandemic, but people seem to be talking like it is. There's a lot of outbreak, but not a lot of serious symptoms right now, correct?
We're about 4 years into the current outbreak. So bird flu has been around for over 100 years. Review by Lysette and colleagues have chronicled this. It occurs periodically through largely birds, poultry, and the birds get natural immunity. And throughout history, there's been about 800 to 900 human cases in Southeast Asia, largely where people in Vietnam and China, where they sleep with the chickens, no health care, and severe cases with humans. And older strains have developed a mortality rate somewhere between 40 and 50% in humans. But this current strain is, as you have pointed out, very mild. We are not seeing reports of large numbers of chicken or other, mammals, for that matter, cattle, getting sick at all. No veterinary radiographic cases of pneumonia. And the human cases have been characteristically very mild, just a pink eye. So I can tell you this version of bird flu, fortunately, is very mild. It is expanding its host range via migratory waterfowl. You may ask, how is a farm in Michigan connected to a farm in Colorado? It's connected by mallard ducks and other migratory birds. So there's no way to eradicate it. If the farms destroy a whole flock of chickens thinking they're going to eradicate, it's not, because the mallard ducks will just fly back and bring in some more. What we need to do is let the animals get through this naturally.
Yeah, something that often doesn't get discussed. Now, there's been a lot of public actions, but I want to ask first about the virology of this. Is this a virus that's adapting to become more infectious but less lethal?
It's mutating that way. We know it's a product of gain-of-function research from McCullough Foundation. Epidemiologist Nick Holscher has the manuscript out in preprint. Gain-of-function meaning research has been done at the USDA Poultry Research Lab in Athens, Georgia, the University of Wisconsin School of Veterinary Medicine and Erasmus University in the Netherlands working collaboratively, where they got H5N1, the current clade 2344B, to spread into migratory waterfowl from poultry and then into mammals. So there's been some sea mammals as well as some cattle that have gotten it, and this all occurred within a couple hundred miles of the Athens, Georgia lab. So the first question is, why is the U.S. government funding gain-of-function research? Has funded Wisconsin, Dr. Karakoka, and why is this occurring? We probably wouldn't have this outbreak if it wasn't for human agency. Fortunately, it is very mild. Again, we should have no need for mass PCR testing. Only about 18% of farmers are going along with this. It's a government PCR testing program. It's a government culling program, and soon a government vaccine program.
Yeah, wow. You mentioned something that I think is one of the big warning signs that you've had to fear about for a long time, that after all we went through with the last pandemic and all the misinformation, all of the bad calls, that we'd start not following public health orders because we don't trust people. That's what's going on? There's been some reports in Michigan of resistance for farmers. Mm-hmm. Have we reached that point where people are like, I'm not sure I trust my public health expert?
For sure, the farmers. Now, I'm in practice in Texas. We've had one of the first outbreaks in Amarillo. I have farmers as patients from West Texas. They tell me firsthand they are not letting the government go on their property and start doing PCR testing, because all it does is generate false positives. They can tell when the chickens are healthy or sick. Unfortunately, the poultry are healthy. And if they get the order for culling, even though the government pays them to kill all the chickens, they have to start over again. It influences the supply chain. And production of chicken is exactly that. It's production, and it shouldn't be interfered with by government bird flu operations. The farmers know what to do, and they let the birds get through this with natural immunity. We have some good protective advice for the farm workers, but we shouldn't start vaccinating the poultry or humans. And this started already vaccinating humans in Finland.
Wow. Why are they doing it in Finland? What would drive Finland to do that right now?
The European Union jumped the gun and they bought 40 million doses of the CSL Seqirus Audens vaccine. Now, this is an antiquated vaccine. It's an antigen-based vaccine. Even Peter Marks, head of our vaccine division at the FDA, says it's not going to cover bird flu. They made a mistake. In the randomized trials testing this human bird flu vaccine, there were 10 deaths with the vaccine compared to every one in placebo. This is terrible. People losing their lives with a bird flu vaccine, and this is an antigen-based vaccine. We have every reason to think that the messenger RNA vaccines will even be more dangerous.
That's remarkable, and I want to spend a whole block of this show just digging into mRNA vaccines, because we're on the path towards another one, and people are wondering, we don't even know what happened with the last one. It's such a remarkable thing. But I want to stay on just what's playing out in the public health sector. Last night, Governor Polis in Colorado declared a state of emergency. Governor Whitmer has imposed some instructions on farmers. Are these governors acting prudently, or are these an overreaction?
It's an overreaction. In fact, it's in the Colorado case, there was call for emergency powers.
Yep.
It's very important. So the public health crisis is the call for emergency powers. Now we suspend all kinds of civil liberties, and we're right back at to what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. There's absolutely no call for a national or statewide public health emergencies. It doesn't exist right now. I can tell you as a practicing doctor, we've got this handled.
Yeah. And as a practicing doctor who had the last pandemic, right, I want to point that out, because if people had just followed your McCullough protocol back then, we probably would have saved a lot of lives. There's no doubt about it. So I want to ask a little bit then, if the governor in Colorado is doing that, if the Michigan governor is doing this, what is the rationale, what is the motivation, and what is the potential danger to public health if Americans get these orders, they're like, we're not doing this again? It does start to create a slide towards distrust, or a gap between people listening and what the instructions are.
I think the middle ground is prudence. The farmers can use their judgment. If they start seeing large numbers of poultry die of the virus, they can make their own decisions. Listen, avian influenza is not the only thing that's on farms. They face clostridial illnesses, salmonella, E. coli. I mean, come on, the farmers know what they're doing. The veterinarians know what they're doing. We don't need government intervention now because of a handful of human bird flu cases, which amount to pink eye. It's clearly a situation where the government needs to get out of the agriculture biosecurity business. They use the term biosecurity measures. That means government-controlled PCR testing, orders to destroy all the poultry in this misguided attempt to eradicate the virus. The virus is in the mallard ducks and other migratory waterfowl, the wild birds, and they're flying all over and spreading it. Yeah. So killing a few million chickens, whether it's in Amarillo or in Colorado, is completely useless. It's not going to do anything to make us more secure or eradicate bird flu.
It could have an effect on the food supply chain, though, right? It could cost us more. It already has in some cases, I understand. But it seems as though we're taking another economic hit for a medical decision that's not going to bring any medical benefit. Is that a fair way of looking at this?
That's a very fair way to it. And the government is not, there aren't any votes. There's no budget oversight on these purchases, these very large purchases. We just saw the European Union do it. Now, the United States government says $176 million to Moderna to actually develop the vaccine. So Moderna doesn't have to go get its own grants. It's getting free development. And then if Moderna comes up with a vaccine, then it's another basically non-negotiated, no oversight purchase of vaccines by the U.S. government.
It feels like we're just having a deja vu moment again here in America. We got about a minute left before the break. When you look out, why has the public establishment been so rigid, sticking on courses that didn't work, and it seems like we're just sticking with that course? What's at work here? Why is that happening?
There's too much money at stake, John. The money is flowing now from the agencies to the not-for-profit foundations to the vaccine manufacturers, the PCR testing manufacturers. The money is flowing and the government's controlling this flow, and it's completely out of control.
It's just so maddening to watch, and yet here it is again, deja vu all over again. Well, so we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to dig deeper into the mRNA movement, because you would think after the unsteady record of the first vaccines, we'd be more cautious, but it seems like we're head over heels. I want to get into all of your great knowledge. But first, folks, if you want to learn more about what Dr. McCullough has done to make telemedicine and put you in control of your future, should there a crisis be on the horizon, go to twc.health/justnews. twc.health/justnews. Learn about their emergency medical kits. We're going to talk a lot about that. But if you go there during the break, you're going to get 10% off on the Wellness Company's medical emergency kits. They are an amazing new innovation. They allow you to be prepared in advance, not after something strikes. We'll talk more about that later. But go to that website. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back, America, to this Just the News, Real America's Voice special report, avoiding another pandemonium, brought to you by our friends at the Wellness Company. Now, when we went to commercial break, we had a little bit of a discussion about the mRNA virus movement, and specifically the fact that the Biden administration wants to start creating another round of vaccines, this one for bird flu. I want to bring our guest in, Dr. Peter McCullough, to referee what's going on here. Sir, I've been really shocked by what I've seen, because we don't have any full visibility into the mRNA vaccines that were administered to COVID-19. We know there's serious side effects, but we don't have enough to make great long-term judgments. And here's the government starting another one for a flu that right now doesn't even seem to be potentially threatening to Americans. What's driving it?
Messenger RNA is a synthetic genetic code for any protein that scientists want to make. So it's a very ready-to-use platform. The shortcomings are that we don't know where the messenger RNA goes in the body. We don't know how long it stays in the body. If we ever can get rid of it, and then how to control it, how to control how much of a foreign antigen is produced. All of these questions are still outstanding now, going on 5 years into the COVID-19 vaccine campaign. And we've had development efforts on messenger RNA in the United States for over 30 years. So we still don't understand these fundamental issues. So the widespread application of the COVID-19 vaccine created for the first time a human test lab. And what we learned is that messenger RNA can be found in lymph nodes, sampled for biopsies, for instance, in breast biopsies, for about 2 months after COVID-19 vaccines. It's circulatory in blood for about a month, and all of these could be much longer. The messenger RNA, not only for COVID, produces the spike protein, and for influenza, it would produce the hemagglutinin, the spike protein, which is the spine on the surface of the virus for influenza. But it also produces frame-shifted proteins, meaning that the human ribosomes recognize it as being foreign, so there is some wobble as it's trying to read the code over these certain synthetic segments. And so probably a dozen or more other proteins that aren't even useful to the human body that may be inflammatory. So what we see almost consistently is the body recognizes that something's wrong, and then the body attacks itself in a process called autoimmunity. This creates a lot of the side effects we see with messenger RNA vaccines.
It's amazing. And we see a huge spike in autoimmune conditions over the last decade or two. It's really remarkable. There is so much we don't have access to that would allow us to make much better judgments about COVID-19 vaccines. What are the data points that we're still missing? I think there's some probably excess mortality data we need, and then also some of the stuff that was kept off the books in the VAERS database, right?
It's true. The CDC holds all the cards. So the CDC should immediately create a real-time, updated public use data set for vaccination. Remember, the Biden administration mandated this on Americans. It is their data. And the CDC should release the vaccine administration data. CDC should merge the vaccine administration data with the all-cause mortality information. We need to know, how many Americans died on the first day after the shot, the second day, the third day, and then our vaccine adverse event reporting system needs to be, fully vetted, and we need independent committees now assigned to it because it's overwhelmed with submissions to VAERS by doctors like me and other healthcare professionals that have already determined the vaccine is a cause of death. So VAERS is representing cause of death and cause of event situations because by proxy of submission. So I only submit heart attacks and blood clots and deaths where I have determined the vaccine is the cause of death. Sadly, these have mounted in the VAERS system. Our CDC and FDA to this day are ignoring this system.
It's just remarkable. And here at Just the News, sir, we filed a lawsuit along with America First Legal to get the FDA to give us access to. There's a set of data that's not in VAERS. That's long-term reaction data that they've been collecting from certain patients. And they came back to the court just a few weeks ago saying, we want to delay it for 2 years. We're just too busy. We don't have time. That 2-year delay, particularly with another mRNA vaccine in the works, could be really detrimental to public health and public trust, right?
We need full transparency. Remember the FDA's guidance on this, and I testified in Congress, John, and told the committee there, the House committee, that the FDA tells us we have 5 to 15 years of clinical concern when someone's taken a genetic product like the messenger RNA vaccines. It means 5 to 15 years of observation, new things that evolve, new medical problems, cancers, blood clots, neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, death. It all should be scrutinized because people have taken a long-lasting genetic product. Sometimes they've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, even up to now, according to the CDC, 10 doses.
Jeez.
10 doses of a vaccine. Who would have ever thought any vaccine in an adult would take 10 shots?
Yeah, and the efficacy window is shrinking and shrinking, right? It doesn't seem like it gives you much protection after 2 or 3 months. Is that correct?
All experts agree it was very short-lived, any protection. The original clinical trials there was a reduction in new cases of COVID, no reduction in transmission, and no reduction in hospitalization and death. That's pretty much what we got out of it. A couple months of protection, as I think fairly reported in the trials. To some degree, they overstated the results because of a lot of methodology. But after that point, the boosters were never tested in humans with large randomized trials. In fact, some of the recent boosters just were released after animal data. So no one could ever make a claim that taking a COVID shot now would save any lives. But yet our FDA commissioner, Anthony Fauci, even the House Select Subcommittee Chair, Brad Wenstrup, they've all claimed that the vaccines have saved millions of lives. These are false claims. The vaccines have never saved lives. No randomized trial, no valid observational study shows that. Now we have data mounting from Rancourt, Mostert, Alessandria, Buchander, all showing increased population mortality in peer-reviewed studies with COVID-19 vaccination.
Doctor, the last time we were on the show, I got a message afterwards from one of our viewers who said they wanted to know the answer. Is it even fair to call these mRNA shots vaccines since they didn't create the sort of immunity that vaccines normally create?
Well, the Ninth Circuit Court in California decided this for the LA Independent School District. They said, no, these aren't vaccines. They're not traditional vaccines. They're gene transfer technology platform. And so for those reasons, they can't be mandated or forced on the worker population as vaccines.
Yeah, such an important ruling that occurred. Going forward, it seems like the drug companies are fond of mRNA and the government are fond of mRNA. Why is that? Is it because it's cheaper and faster to market, or is it because they have some investment in this? What would let them go down this path when there's so much warning signs blinking about mRNA vaccines?
It's speed to development, John. If they could establish safety of the platform, when there's a new emerging infectious disease threat, literally within a day or two of knowing the genetic code, there could be a new vaccine because the lipid nanoparticles are the same.
Right.
The ingredients for the messenger RNA is the same. Everything's set up with the E. coli plasmids that can crank it out. So it's just a simple change in the computer code. So it's very attractive if it was a safe platform. What's really spoiling things for this giant industry that's been built up is that it looks like the platform is not safe. They haven't worked out these core issues. Messenger RNA may be a wonderful platform to produce normal human proteins. Let's say if a diabetic who's deficient in insulin, it can produce normal human insulin. It's potentially useful there. It'd have to be tested. But to produce the spike protein for SARS-CoV-2, the fusion protein for respiratory syncytial virus, the hemagglutinin from influenza, this is creating in the human body a veritable soup of foreign proteins that aren't supposed to be there. It's going to make people get sick, and boy, has it.
Are we essentially letting our bodies become genetic engineering labs with some of this?
If the messenger RNA is incorporated into human DNA, and there's only one study that's demonstrated that, Alden and colleagues from Malmo, Sweden, and if it gets incorporated into human DNA and this is verified, then yes, unfortunately, those who took a vaccine, in a sense, have been genetically modified.
That is something we got to get to the bottom of and be 100% sure we know the answer. And that's something that you've been so profoundly correct on, Doctor. It's such a remarkable thing to watch. What the effort to censor you and then how much everything you told us was right. It's such a great public service you've done now for all of us. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We got more conversation with our exclusive interview with Dr. Peter McCullough. But first, folks, go to twc.health/justnews right now. You're going to get 10% off on those medical emergency kits. We're going to dive in and tell you all about them in a little bit, but go check it out in the meantime. It is an amazing innovation of telemedicine. Dr. Peter McCullough, the Wellness Company. Go check them out during the break. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back, America, to this Just the News, Real America's Voice special report. Avoiding another pandemic pandemonium, brought to you by our good friends at the Wellness Company. We are here with Dr. Peter McCullough, the Wellness Company's Chief Scientific Officer. Got the whole hour with him. I want to pick up right where we left off before before the commercial break, sir. We have this sort of expectation in medical journals and medical research that we'll get a 360-degree look at things, both sides represented in sort of a conclusion. Has that been going on with COVID-19 in the post-COVID-19 era?
We saw a dramatic shift in the COVID-19 pandemic where we didn't have balance in the medical literature. Bias quickly swept in. In the early phase of it, the bias was actually to suppress any advances on treatment. And we saw this across the board, from anything from nasal washes and gargles to aspirin, oral antivirals, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, colchicine, monoclonal antibodies, steroids, heparins. We saw a complete suppression of information. It was very, very hard to have any papers come out on this. Essentially, the first year of the pandemic, the bias in the literature was the infection was unassailable. It was untreatable. All we could do was wait to be hospitalized and wait for a vaccine. Then in the second and third and fourth years of the pandemic, what we saw was a complete shift and an all-out bias favoring COVID-19 vaccination. And papers would be written concluding, the vaccines have saved millions of lives. They're essential in bringing the pandemic to a close. And there was all kinds of rosy words and hubris around the vaccines. And I can tell you, I've been a journal editor of two major journals for over 20 years. There is always balance on any issue. If there's any drug, there'll be papers that evaluate the benefits, and there'll be papers that evaluate the harms. There's always a balance. The same thing in surgery. Nothing is rosy and perfect. Nothing, and certainly the COVID-19 vaccines are not. But to this day, the major journals have had a filter, and they only allow the favorable papers to be published, and the unfavorable papers get rejected, and sometimes, many times, never see the light of day or end up at lower, less prominent journals.
We had a very important story, got a lot of traffic on our site about a week ago. It says, from Fauci to Levine, feds covertly bend science to politics on things like COVID origin and gender confusion. It seems as though a community that was always committed to science and principles of science suddenly got committed to politics of science. How did that happen? When did that happen? When did you see it happening?
Well, we found out through the Fauci emails, for instance, it was early in 2020. Yeah. Fauci, knowing that he was part of the team that created the SARS-CoV-2 virus, it was created in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Fauci had his hands on it. Ralph Barrick at UNC Chapel Hill, Peter Daszak at the EcoHealth Alliance, Dr. Xingling Li. Fauci commissioned the first of 12 fraudulent papers. First one was published by Christian Andersen that said the virus came out of a fish market in Wuhan to intentionally mislead us. So we saw things becoming distorted quickly. Then we had Lancet publish a completely fraudulent paper on hydroxychloroquine with fake data. We've never seen this before. It frightened people from using a safe and effective drug. New England Journal of Medicine published a fraudulent paper from the same database regarding ACE inhibitors, a drug we use commonly for heart failure and hypertension as it relates to COVID. And then it was game on after that. We saw every single paper come in just pushing the vaccines. It was absolutely relentless. And you pointed out that through HHS, there's been now, our government agencies influencing medical care. And so I gave commentary on Fox News recently that our HHS Assistant Secretary Levine pressured WPATH, which is the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, right, to actually remove age limits for transgender hormones and surgery on little children, many of whom have autism. And this was an absolute outrage. And in fact, the professional organization succumbed, and they followed the bias of Levine, who he himself is a transgender individual.
It is a remarkable thing to see the thumb on the scale of so many things in places where we never had this distrust or had a reason to distrust for a long period of time. What is driving it? Is it just partisans getting into the wrong jobs? Is it a culture coming out of medical schools? Is it big money? Is there maybe just people wanting to profiteer off of whatever the medical crisis of the moment is? What's your best assessment on why this great system has got turned upside down so quickly?
I'd put top of the list money. Before COVID-19, a blockbuster drug could take 20 years of development, probably $500 million in development the drug company would have to foot. And in its first year, John, it would earn $1 billion. That would be a blockbuster drug.
Right.
Now we're seeing vaccine companies have governments pick up their development costs, and then the vaccine companies pull in tens of billions of dollars. I can tell you the biopharmaceutical complex has never seen money like this, ever. It has been astonishing. The U.S. national budget greatly expanded under COVID, and it didn't contract after the pandemic essentially lessened. So I put money at the top. Doctors over the decades have become progressively less independent and now work for large health systems. So they have to be, they have to do what they're told through corporate governance or large medical practice groups. We've seen the medical journals essentially be co-opted by the pharmaceutical industry through advertising and control. We've seen the media. The United States is one of two countries that allow pharmaceutical companies to advertise products on TV. But importantly, the advertisers seem to control TV content. This has come out through a series of interviews. This has led to such outrage. Do you know that 5 states now are suing Pfizer for deceptive trade practices, including false advertising of the COVID-19 vaccines, both by Pfizer, but also by the CDC is participating in false advertising. We never had government agencies advertise products for pharmaceutical companies. You can see how distorted this has become. I predict these 5 states, including Kansas and Texas, where I am, they'll expand to all 50 states, and then this will quickly spread to Moderna, Janssen, as well as Novavax. And this is very important for the investors. When these state attorney generals sue these big pharmaceutical companies, John, they always settle. The companies never want to go through discovery or court cases on this. So I think the investors should understand there's probably going to be big payouts now coming from the vaccine companies back to the states.
When I did some early reporting on Dr. Fauci back in 2004 and 2005, when he was doing some drug experiments or vaccine experiments on foster children in New York, it got exposed, and there was a whistleblower there, and he said, you can't let the line be crossed once, because once you do, the temptation is to cross it every day. Have we gotten to a point now where the ethos is you don't have to worry about crossing lines that were the bright lines for medicine for a long time?
We have, because the biopharmaceutical complex is taking care of itself, John. We have 9 out of the last 10 FDA commissioners. They actually go work for big pharma, venture capital, or biotech companies, the companies that they used to regulate. So they're currying favor while they're in office to turn around and get that lucrative job or that consulting agreement afterwards. So the whole system now is completely corrupt, and Americans now have lost any trust, but also any protection provided by these agencies. Remember, essentially, the FDA is a consumer protection agency for medicine and vaccine and device safety. And now Americans have not been protected on the COVID-19 vaccines in terms of safety.
In fact, some people might argue it's become a farmer protection agency at the FDA. That's a very dangerous moment to think about. Dr. McCullough, we're going to be right back with you. Got so much more to discuss. Folks, in the meantime, go to twc.health/justnews. Go get that 10% off. Get one of these medical emergency kits. We're going to dive in a few minutes and tell you why there's such an extraordinary opportunity. You prepare in advance. You don't have to be hit with a crisis and then look for the solution. Great innovation by Dr. McCullough and his team at the Wellness Company. We'll be right back with more right after these messages. Welcome back, America. We're going to continue our discussion on the learnings and lack of learnings from the last pandemic as we face all the future challenges in our healthcare system. We're joined by Dr. Peter McCullough from the Wellness Company. Doctor, I want to pick up in a place. A lot of times we think of the Supreme Court about law and litigation and justice and criminality and things like that. But the Chevron doctrine reversal, which was the landmark decision, I think, from this term, got rid of the ability of federal regulators to do what they thought they wanted to do rather than what Congress gave them the power to do. It actually does have some impact downstream to medicine and public health, doesn't it?
It does. This was a huge decision. Remember when the FTC or the FDA wanted to go after a company regarding promotion or product development, and the case got mired in all kinds of technical details. The Chevron document said, well, the government agencies are right because they're the source of truth. Not anymore. The Chevron doctrine has been thrown out. Now each case, we must review and discuss the evidence with experts. This is very important. The Federal Trade Commission COVID misinformation practice policy is going to go down, I think, in flames because the FTC was tying up nasal spray and gargle companies, vitamin and nutraceutical companies. For no reason, these companies should have developed and advanced their products. We're going to see all over now, I think, court cases evolve where we will discuss the information and we'll weigh the evidence because it's an evolving pandemic at the Wellness Company. We have been evaluating the evidence as we work with positioning products, nutraceutical supplements, our telemedicine group, and the kits, the emergency kits.
Yeah, such an important evolution. And for most of the COVID debate, it seemed as though we had an evidence-free debate, right? Whether it was the origins, the health and safety of the vaccine, the responses or the rejection of certain things. One of those places that got hurt by evidence-free discussion was a focus on therapeutics. Have we learned anything in the public health sector? Is the public health sector more open to the idea that therapeutics are so important to the next pandemic, or are we still on the vaccine or die train?
The agencies have only acknowledged the therapeutics that essentially they developed. So if it was Paxlovid or Molnupiravir, those were the oral drugs. The medical community was way ahead of that. I mean, we worked with a whole variety of drugs. When Paxlovid came 2 years into the pandemic, sure, I used it, but ahead of that, we used all kinds of oral antivirals. There's a breaking story out recently that, believe it or not, antihistamines probably had a favorable role all the way through. The Shetty protocol, Dr. Sankrit Shetty in South Africa promulgated that protocol. He was right the entire time. University of Virginia was right when they studied famotidine, a form of an antihistamine, anti-acid drug available over the counter. So no, our agencies are woefully behind, but at the Wellness Company, what we've done is we've taken these best-in-class protocols, the products that are safe and effective and affordable, and then we've assembled them in kits for people to be able to use for a whole variety of applications. And now we have a refill program where now if one uses one of the medications, I advise them get a membership and then be prepared to just apply for a refill of what's been used.
And it's so important. And one of the things that happened during the COVID-19 pandemic is the patient and their doctor couldn't make decisions that were in the best interest of the patient or in the best expertise of the doctor. Public health just put these cookie cutters down. You are creating a path with the Wellness Company to re-empower the doctor-patient relationship. Tell us the philosophy that drove the Wellness Company to start to develop these really novel and innovative solutions.
Well, the philosophy was that the government protocols were way too late. They were not comprehensive enough, and they didn't evolve with the pandemic. So at the Wellness Company, we meet regularly. We can alter our protocols. We can expand our kits. For instance, we expanded the Black Contagion Kit to cover bird flu. Yeah. And that was an administrative decision. We did this months ago as this was emerging, so we're prepared. If there was some new threat or some new strain, we would look at that very carefully. Through the entire time, we've covered COVID. We've covered actually the Chinese pneumonia, which was a macrolide-resistant mycoplasma pneumonia. We covered traditional skin infections, bladder and yeast infections, bronchitis, bee stings, a whole variety of other illnesses. But the good thing about what's being done at the Wellness Company is we are adapting to the scientific information as it comes along, making sure people are prepared. And now with this refill program, once the kits are purchased, we're going to be able to update them, provide refills. People are going to be set. We also have a great reliance on nutraceuticals. We understand people don't want a prescription drug for everything. So our line of nutraceuticals are the best in class. They've been carefully designed. Each one of them contains a lot more than just one ingredient. That's what actually gets the job done. I'm using them in my practice. People are very satisfied. And again, with a membership and the discounts, you have a promo code up on the screen right now, Just News, people get additional discounts.
Yeah, that's a really great deal. It's interesting. When I was talking to one of your colleagues, another company, but he marveled at the mindset shift that the Wellness Company has created. If we know a hurricane's coming, we prepare in advance. If we know there's a winter storm coming, certainly in Washington, D.C., we stock up on toilet paper and milk. I don't know why, but we do that. But the medicine profession has always waited traditionally for the crisis to come, and then we try to scramble to find the solution. You're actually empowering patients to be ahead and have the preparation and the medicines in hand before a crisis occurs. That's a big cultural and mind shift, isn't it?
The shift is really to trust the patients, that they can assist in their own diagnosis. They can follow instructions, take medications appropriately. They don't have to be physically present in a clinic or emergency room or a hospital room to do this. So a lot of it has to do with the sophistication of where we are in medical history. When you say bladder infection, people understand what that means. Antibiotics, they understand what they are. So the guidebooks are very helpful. The telemedicine is always available 24/7, help people through conditions. But these ER visits and urgent care visits have gotten so expensive to go, no matter what insurance we have. It's far more affordable to have kits. I talked to somebody in the last hour. They had each of the 4 kits. She goes, I'm covering all the bases. That was less than my last urgent care visit. This way I'm ready for travel, for camping, for the next pandemic that hits, or for routine infections that we could get in the household.
Let's go through those 4 kits real quickly, because I want people to understand. But beyond the Nutracil and other things, which are really remarkable, there are 4 specific sort of emergencies that you prep us for. Just walk through those 4 kits for me, could you?
The black kit's the contagion kit. That's specifically for COVID-19 and bird flu. The aqua blue kits, that's a broad home emergency kit. That's bladder infections, yeast infections, bronchitis, other problems that can arise largely in the home. The green is the travel kit. That's going to cover infectious forms of diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, motion sickness. And then the red kit is for camping. That's actually for those out there in the wilderness, get a form of a spider bite or bee sting. You're covered there. And again, it's key to get a membership and get the emails, get the updates, and certainly get the availability of refills, because you're going to use the kit. Not going to use every drug in the kit all at once, but once one of the drugs is used, you want to be able to refill these. These medications last for years. They're packaged the right way. I've personally been to our pharmacy. We've gone over all the quality control measures. We're very happy. We're providing America a solution in a time of need and distrust of the medical orthodoxy.
Such an amazing innovation, and it's so easy. That's the other part. Folks, we're going to come back one more block with the doctor, but before we do, go to twc.health/justnews. That promo code JustNews is going to get you 10% off any of those kits, any of the emergency preparedness stuff that you see on that site. It's an amazing, amazing opportunity. Don't wait till you're sick. Have it on hand in case you get sick. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back, everybody, to this Just the News, Real America's Voice special report. Avoiding another pandemic pandemonium, brought to you by our friends at the Wellness Company. All right, we've been talking for the hour about all the preparedness, all of the learnings of the past pandemic, the fears of another pandemic. I want to take Dr. McCullough to a special place right now. The headlines of the day. Everybody, no matter what side of politics you're on, are talking about it. Is our current president, Joe Biden, impaired? You and I, during the commercial break, we're talking about something you've been observing. You're seeing a little bit of what Joe Biden displays in some of your own patients, right?
I'm a practicing internist and cardiologist, so I've seen patients with either Parkinson's or Alzheimer's disease my entire career. I've had it in my family firsthand. Many people listening to this, John, have had elderly parents and grandparents who have developed one or two of these conditions. But Biden is displaying a blended pattern, features of Alzheimer's, features of Parkinson's. I'm seeing this in my patients who have taken one or more of the COVID-19 vaccines. And there are now publications, a recent one by Rowe and colleagues from Korea, 4 million Koreans. This is a definitive study. The vaccines accelerate cognitive decline and neurodegeneration in the brain. They clearly do. Biden, since 2019, and almost certainly in late 2020, 2021, he's taken these vaccines. I think the White House should tell us, how many vaccines did he take? What are the brands and administration? They should be reporting. His doctor should report this to the vaccine adverse event reporting system. Biden and the administration mandated the vaccines on us. They owe us an explanation of what's going on. Tell us how many vaccines he took. And then we need to have some serious conversations about his diagnosis. One of the features people will recognize is there's no insight. Biden cannot see inside himself to see that he's failing. We typically rely on family members, spouse, and children. And here, the Biden family is letting us down by not showing that appropriate insight in terms of his competency. But, you know, if he was a parent or grandparent right now in any one of our households, we'd be talking about the safety of driving, managing a checkbook, cooking with electric or gas stoves, the risk of falling. I predict what's going to happen is there will be a major health event. From the time of diagnosis of dementia to death, John, in published studies, is only 2 years. Biden is far along that pathway now. I predict an aspiration pneumonia, an intercurrent stroke, a hip fracture from one of these falls. I think some medical event is going to call the nation into crisis, and then Kamala Harris will have to essentially assume the job of the presidency, and then the Democratic Party is going to have to grapple with Harris as and likely the next candidate.
Yeah. It's something we don't wish on anyone, but all of us who've had a loved one that got dementia or other forms, we know that is the course it takes. It's inevitable. Our bodies are what they are. You can obviously not make a complete diagnosis until you actually view everything, but you see very specific behaviors and mannerisms that tell you what's going on here. What are the most obvious things you see when you look at President Joe Biden?
He has, you can tell his face has changed. His face has less expression. His jaw is hanging open. Yep. His ability to recall and think quickly has gone down. His processing speed has gone down. He laughs and tries to cover it up. That's a classic Alzheimer's thing. Just kind of laughing because he doesn't know the answer. Laughing as a cover up. You see his gait has changed. He's taking very small steps now. And his body posture has changed where he's almost falling over. That's characteristic of Parkinson's, but he doesn't have that classic Parkinson's tremor. Now, you're right. I can't examine him. We would do an exam, laboratories, and neurologic imaging. But I've looked at enough film to tell you he has features of both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and we see that rolled together now and accelerated by COVID-19 vaccination.
What an important observation that you've made there. One last quick question for you. A lot of people talk about his stare, that he has these unusual stare that almost feels like he's blank. He's not even connecting. Is that connected to all of this as well?
Yeah, it's called a masked facies. If I could examine him, I would actually tap on his forehead to see if he had a glabellar reflex. I bet he does. Also a rooting reflex if we touch the face. These are vestigial reflexes that come out during Alzheimer's disease.
Well, doctor, we're going to have to get you back for more discussion of this.